I'm Aries.
And I'm Leo, and this is Zodimaniax.
Woo! It's official,
It's
bitch.
official. Hell yeah.
Cool. So what is this? You want to bitch about people? Is that right?
Always. 'Cause
Oh,
people suck.
That's so good. That is so good.
So if you are in the spiritual community on TikTok or like the witch talk community, something that you see quite often is those tarot readings, right?
Oh God, I literally
Those.
Dude, that's the funny thing is you asked me how I ended up on the wrong side of TikTok because you're the only account I'm following. I only am able to interact with things that are such as... So unfortunately, every single one of your followers is subjected to this shit.
I know.
Where now all they see is like live readings of... I only saw one person do it right, where he literally just pulled a card and then set a real life example of like, oh, this is something that you could be dealing with. But it's literally just interpreting the card. He's not doing all of the other things.
Right. There's so many extra things that people do, and it's like, in my opinion, it's really, really easy to tell people apart of like who's like an actual reader and like, you know,
someone
who can
who's
give
just
reliable information. Yeah. So I saw. I'm mentioning it because I saw this TikTok this morning, and I was like, oh my God, I hate this so much. This girl. So, like, first of all, I see her all the time. She only ever does love readings, and that's a bad sign.
Ooh, yeah.
Because that's what people want to hear, and so people
it will make them make decisions that they would make them think that there's something going on that's not, or make them feel interpret things in such a problematic way. There's really no other way to describe it.
There's that. But it's also the fact that people only do that because love readings boost your algorithm, because that's what people want to see. That's what people pay attention to, because everybody wants love.
Yeah.
But there's this girl that I see her a lot, and like almost every single one of her readings starts with, please stop scrolling, you have to hear this. I've been trying to get this video out like 3 times. This is the 3rd time I've tried to record it, and I haven't been able to get it right.
You need to hear this right now.
Well, no, it's that line specifically that I'm talking about, where they use the example saying, you have to hear this because somebody doesn't want you to hear this, because I've been trying to get this video done like multiple times and it hasn't been able to work, like that kind. So there's when I see something like that, there's 2 things that I think. One, and especially since this girl does it for like every single video.
Right, yeah.
She is going through her cards and pulling what cards that she thinks would make like a story that people want to hear.
Something controversial or...
Right, so that she can have it all set up beforehand, and then she uses that as an excuse to be like, this is why I already have it laid out and I didn't pull them on camera. And then 2, if I see somebody else doing that, where it's like every once in a while and stuff, it's like, if you go to record a video, because this has happened to me too, if you go to record a video and something happens where it gets corrupted or the sound is weird,
then you would assume that it's a bad idea.
Right. Spirit is trying to tell you that either that message is not for everyone, that message is for you, or it's telling you that you just straight up should not be posting that video. Yeah. And so it's just like, if that happens to you, you delete the video and you do something else.
The point being is that for anyone who is not a spiritualist, I'm going to provide also, I'm not trying to be mean or hate fun or anything like that, because I agree with the therapy, I agree with tradition, I agree with magic, I agree with literally all of the things. Everyone should be able to do whatever they want as long as it's not hurting anyone. However, there's like certain mindsets when it comes to dealing with people who are in what would be called a community, because they even use that word, like it's about the echo chamber, the mindsets, the way that people process things. A true spiritual girly. I can't believe we have to make that distinction between someone who is a straight up scammer and someone who actually just does this shit for fun.
Yeah.
It's so weird when people pretend that they're doing a thing for fun. They pretend to enjoy and know things about this thing. But if you are if someone is a true spiritualist of any description, they're going to be borderline paranoid about the accuracy of the thing that they're doing. If there's stuff, if fate were to somehow intervene with something that they're doing, then they're going to internalize that as, this is a sign that I should not do this. Exactly. There is something stopping me. Literally a metaphysical outside force is stopping me from doing this thing. And these other bitches, man, just do not pick up on that. If they are not doing that, they are not a true spiritual girly. If they are not
because they know that what they're doing is going to get them views. And they're just like, I'm not going to listen. I need to do this, like I need to figure out a way to make this work. Yeah.
See, and actually, I think I'm glad that you clarified. That's why I had to force you to clarify, because that's also just a TikToker thing in general, for people to say, I've made this video. It's the exact words I've heard. I had to, the number of times that I've heard this phrase. I've been trying to get this video out. 1. 2, I have tried posting this 3 times.
Yeah.
It is the number 3, and I've tried. What do you mean you tried posting
it? 3
it?
times and you're out.
Yeah, like, is there some reason? What did you do that you were like, oh, you were able to upload it? What do you mean by that? Oh, you just mean that it didn't go viral. It didn't get that many views. Like, bitch, I know damn well that the average, no matter how many followers you have, the average number of views you're going to get on any given video is 250. Every single fucking time. And if it is not going super omega viral, it's not going to surpass 250 views. Yeah. Ever.
Well, I mean, I guess that's not necessarily true, because I've had videos that got, like, between, like, 1,000 to 4,000 views.
1,000 to 4,000.
But I wouldn't consider that viral,
still within the community.
Yeah.
If it is not... So, 250 is, like, the max for even just outside engagement plus the followers that you already have. 1,000 to 4,000 is you have reached the general community. If you are under 1,000 views, you weren't even recommended to like other people who also get this shit. This is like at 250 views, you have been recommended to people who are occasionally recommended many different accounts. They haven't even started recognizing people's usernames or faces yet. So that's soft blocked. If you're between 1 and 4K, I would say that's like, oh, everyone saw you at least once. Everyone has seen one of your videos if they are in this community. It's not viral until you've surpassed 10K. And by that point, it usually exponentially skyrockets over the course of a few weeks or months or whatever. That's when people start getting bombarded with notifications. They're like, why did this get like 5,000 views, and then 6 months from now you're getting like 1,000 comments per day, and like it's blowing up your phone or whatever.
Yeah, stuff like that. I feel like, because there are some tarot readers that I really trust that they have a pretty large following, and so like they regularly get quite a few views, and I feel like a lot of that is like, you know, like there is that like, I guess, inner circle community, but then there's also like that like in between community that they're not super involved, but they do
watching.
Pay attention.
That's the audience. The main core community has, we can talk about community dynamics too. That's something I actually know something about. But so you have like the patriarchs, matriarchs, archetypes. I like comparing them to Warhammer nowadays, the Primarchs, these people who are the main personalities that we use as a surrogate to watch their reactions to what everyone else is doing. Yeah. So there's like a general, like, some of them, they change, you know, quite often depending, but most creators stick around for about 2 years, regardless of how much visibility they get or how much they're posting. But you can tell the types. You can tell, like, people who talk a certain way or dress a certain way, they have, like, a surrogate person who is the content creator we see as the main one who does that kind of thing. And then there's the outer, so that's, like, at the center. And then there's another circle that's a little bit farther away as far as degrees of separation are concerned. That's the audience. And they also have reactors and people who are of those same archetypes, but there are more of them, and they are not as much a stereotypical representation of that archetype that we all know. There's the cottagecore girl, there's the astrology girl,
they're all facets.
They are facets, and it just becomes more and more faceted, and there are more and more audience members over time. Yeah. So, like, that between 1 and 4K, actually, that was exactly the same as the numbers I had back in the day, was under 1,000 is like basically a group of regulars that you guys are neighbors with each other. You're all on the same level. Usually it's content creators reacting to other content creators type of thing. And then after, 1 or 2K, that's when you start getting a slightly bigger audience. That's the first time you're exposed to an audience at all.
Yeah.
From personal experience, you do not want that number to exceed 4K.
As much as you feel like you probably would,
you
like,
think
you want
do,
the
but
exposure,
just
you want the money, like
imagine
whatever.
all the same reactions to your content, all the same shitty comments, everything, except there's 10,000 more of each of those people doing that shit.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but worse and more people. You do not want over 4K ever.
My readings are, like, very specific. Like, I really, really try to keep the like, collective that I read for to be very
You also
specific.
don't do shit for shock value
No,
in general.
I'm genuinely just, like, hey, this is the energy that's going on today. This is how you should probably be handling this. Now, like, if my videos were to exceed that, like, 1,000, like, they never get that high, but, like, if they were to exceed that 1,000 to 4,000 viewership, I would be very, very skeptical about the authenticity of my reading.
Yeah. Aw, no, that's
it
kind
would
of sad,
it would worry
actually.
me. It would worry me.
Well, it's not about the authenticity. It's about maybe it's just a little bit too vague, yeah, so that more people are relating to it than they realistically should. Like, no, you should not be reading into this thing in this way or whatever.
It's like, this is for very specific people.
But even especially from, like, my perspective as, like, someone who, I don't want to call myself a skeptic. I know I could be put into that category because I'm not really a skeptic in terms of, like, just not being open-minded to it at all and being insistent upon things. But I like to be presented with facts and explanations, especially when the point is that it can all be backed up by science in some form or another. If you're really diligent about it, if there isn't some scientific explanation, there is a historical explanation, a specific story or thing that happened that made people start to pass that information along. But when it comes to your readings, if it isn't already something that I've been thinking about, or it just, for whatever reason, I just get that feeling. I'm like, this is somebody else's thing. I'm not even thinking about this stuff right now. It's hard to explain without getting into it. But as far as tarot readings and card readings, and rune readings, if you're not familiar, they're very broad, yes, but when you put them together, it should, in your mind, like, put together a story. It should remind you of a certain situation. And if it doesn't, then you can just not think about it. And in my mind, I like all of them, and I'll just fucking sit there and listen to them, because I'm like, oh, well, maybe looking at things from this perspective might change my opinion of a situation I'm in. That's the whole point of the meditating runes, quote unquote. So I'm into that. But I think even, like, for your average person who is a beginner and is just interested in your stuff because they are interested in it and they see a sincere display of these things, because I think it is obvious. I don't want you to get self-conscious about your reading if they get too many views, because there are times also that I'm reminded now of the quarantine and posting in the quarantine where a lot of people were on the same page as each other at one time, because of everyone is worried about the same thing. Something just happened in real life or at home that we're all going through right now, and we are thinking of the exact same situation. It's okay every once in a while. If every video was like that, I think you should assume that they're there for your personality and not so much for the substance of your content. That doesn't make you bad at it.
No, I'm not saying I'm being bad at it. Like, that's definitely not what I meant. I meant, like, am I catering to people, I guess, is the better way. Yeah, but I do see what you mean, because, like, the focus of my content is about spiritual healing, is about, like, evolving yourself. So I'm like, okay, like, there might be
relatable shit.
Right. There might be a collective of people right now who relate to that, but as time goes on, like, people still see those videos, and I'm like, maybe, they'll be in a similar situation later where, like, they can actually get
But they should still be aware that it's technically not accurate if you didn't see it within the time that it was.
Only some.
Or, oh no, because
Yeah.
you did say that there isn't a level of, like, time paradox shit where it's, like, time is a, what do they call it?
You okay?
An illusion? Or, like,
Well, yeah, it's not real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
time...
All of time is existing right now. Like, the past, present, future is all existing right now.
So videos are still, or predictive or tarot reading type of videos are still perfect for that because
it's the energy that matters.
Yeah.
It's whatever energy you are in at that moment. That's why I do the numbers, the number confirmations, because those specific numbers carry with it specific energy. So if you are seeing that number in any given moment, then that means that's the energy that you're in that moment. And so that's the specific energy that you can relate to in that video. So that's why I try to be really specific about that. And I'm very careful about what numbers, like I make sure like I've done my research on those specific numbers before I put them on there, because I want to make sure
you
that
might
energy
not be
is just
thinking numerology from the start, but when it comes to presenting it to other people, you're like, let's not get it confused.
Yeah, like it's not to say like, oh, if this is for you, you see this because blah blah blah. It's like, if you are seeing these numbers, that means that you are in a specific energy, and the specific energy that you are in is aligned with this specific message. Like, that's basically, like, this message is what those numbers mean, essentially.
Translating.
Yeah.
So you get the message either way.
Words.
If you don't understand the words that I'm saying, then you should still follow your numbers and pay attention to what your numbers are.
I have made quite an effort of understanding the language of numbers.
That's awfully nice of you.
I'm not proficient by any means. I'm definitely not an expert. I don't know a whole lot about numerology.
I like that about you. I'm very relieved that... No, because when you saw my attempt at trying to figure out what my life path number was.
That was what is that?
I read books.
It's so easy.
I asked bitches.
All you have to do is
I
add
said,
up your
hey,
birthday,
bitches.
and you're at like this mathematical equation. I'm like, what is this? When you came over, you're like, oh my. When you came over, you're like, oh, my life path number is 5, and I'm like, it's not. It's like
literally, I asked bitches. I said, recommend me books. Tell me, I want to understand. I know what the like how certain, I guess I want to call it urban legends, like how or like the creepypasta type of shit. Like some people just do. Oh, ARGs. That's what I'm reminded of. Is that hints of people planting numerologies, numbers on purpose to...
Oh, that fell down.
Whatever.
What?
Don't tell them your secrets.
Change the subject. You are going too far into this numerology shit. You don't need to be talking about the language of numbers right now, and we're gonna move on.
All right. No.
We just got done talking about this, like, ignoring the
Yes. I ignore warning signs until literally, like, the equivalent of an anvil falls on my head. Like, you have to physically restrain me. I need to be forced to do the thing. Like, I will see that, oh, these... And even, again, like, as far as the explanation of, like, signs and things is concerned... At the end of the day, if you're like, if that shit scares you, because that's kind of how it was for me. When I started reading into certain things, I was like, okay, there has to be an explanation for the fact that, like, I didn't notice any of this shit before, and then I'm just noticing it all. It's just in your head.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, when you're thinking about a thing, subconsciously your brain wants you to process it. They want you to, like, think and figure shit out. So you hear that, you know, seeing a certain type of bird is like, it means something in symbology in a bunch of different places.
But what does it mean to you? That's
what it means to you is the most important part, and that's why people should do their own research and not even listen to people like us who are just really into it and making our own interpretations.
That goes back to what I was saying about, like, literally life is like life, the world, everything that you experience, it's basically like living in one giant poem.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like the author, the person who created it all, whoever the fuck that is, you know, they could have had specific intentions and specific symbolisms for what they put out there. But you, as the audience, when you see certain symbols, you are going to relate it to things
in your own life,
right?
Like really
like
specific.
What you think those symbols mean.
Yeah.
So it's very subjective, and that's the way that everything in life is. That when you see these things, that like, oh my gosh, like when I saw that lighter. You know, like, it's just a lighter with a picture on it. And every single person who looks at that is going to think something different. But I saw that and I thought of you because that was a symbol of you for me. So, you know, like, that's just, like, one little example. But I am absolutely one of those people that, like, it takes me, like, 3 strikes and you're out. But it took me a lot of time to learn that. And I got into some sticky situations that were, like, I wouldn't listen, and so I was put in a really bad position in order to force me into being like, you cannot do this. Yeah.
But also what is that to, even when you don't recognize symbology, you're still going to have situations like that where if you're particularly self-aware, you may notice that self-sabotage, that's what they call it, is like you want a thing to change, you want a thing to happen, but you don't want to do the thing that it's going to take to get you there.
Right.
So your brain kind of forces you. Like the idea of accidentally bumping into someone in public, and that's like a form of self-sabotage, or almost like a Freudian slip, kind of. I'm having a hard time describing it. It's like you want to do that thing, you want to talk to that person, so for whatever reason you like accidentally, it's actually an accident that you bumped into this person, but the idea is that your brain made you clumsy in that moment and like forced you into that situation.
So are you saying it's like you were actually supposed to bump into that person, or because like
you wanted to, but you were too, say as like a specific example, say I see someone that I want to talk to, and I start walking in that direction, but I also don't have the balls to like actually walk up to them and start talking to them.
Yeah.
So when they inevitably walk past you, as you have now moved yourself into their path, you may turn around suddenly or trip over something and bump into them. Because you're nervous, and well, there's other reasons for it, but the point is that the reality of the situation is that your subconscious made you think other things consciously to trick you into doing the thing that you actually wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of have to think, like, how much of it is actually, like, spirit and spirituality, and how much of it is actually psychology.
How much of it,
and just, like, human nature. Which is why I think it's really important to just, like, not give a shit either way and just live your life. And, you know, like, if you have, like, an intuitive feeling about something, then you should probably follow that feeling.
Do whatever you feel. Please just do whatever comes naturally, even if it makes you an asshole or everyone's going to think you're a pick-me or whatever. I'm so tired of people doing the antithetical thing on purpose, and then bitches getting mad at me. Like, I'm gonna fuck up their secret timeline. I don't give a shit about your fucking timeline!
Right, you only care about yours. And that's the thing, is that, like, don't stop yourself from doing what you want to do in your life, what is going to make you happy, because you are worried about how other people are going to perceive you. That's their fucking problem. You do what you want to do at all times. Like, life is too short for that shit. Okay? You could die tomorrow.
Well, okay,
do you want to die tomorrow thinking that you didn't do everything you wanted to do?
The point being is that regardless, what I'm saying is that even if someone else tells me that I'm doing a thing that interferes with their path or whatever, I have to look them straight in the eye and be like, no, I'm not.
No.
Because I'm doing what I feel compelled to do. What are you doing? You're worrying about someone else's fucking business.
Right.
You should mind your own business. How about that?
If you perceive that someone doing something is going to steer you away from your path, then you are steering yourself away.
Yeah,
you
are
are
reacting to someone else, what they're doing, and allowing it to interfere. Then maybe, again, maybe you're just not doing what you actually feel compelled to do.
Right, exactly. You're too worried about what everyone else is doing.
That says more about you than it does about me.
It reminds me of this video I saw recently, actually, was someone was talking about, like, you know, like, what do you do when like you have a trigger or something and someone's pushing your buttons, and like how do you get people to quit pushing your buttons? Like how do you explain it to people that like, hey, this is something that like you need to be careful with around me, blah blah blah. And this person looked this dude like dead in the eyes, and she's just like, why do you have a in the first place?
Yes.
Why do you allow yourself to have a button for them to press? Because if you have a button, someone is going to press it. Just get rid of the button.
Yeah.
That's like, this is a you problem. Yeah. And I absolutely agree with that 100%.
That resonated with me.
Yeah.
I love that.
Do I get triggered by stuff because of my own issues? Absolutely.
But no one knows that you have those issues in the first place. They don't know.
I'm not going to make everyone around me adhere to, like what I need, like what I perceive as my own needs. You know, like it's like, no, they're going to live their life, and if I get triggered by something that they're doing, then I understand that means that that's something that I need to work on with myself so that I'm not triggered by that shit anymore.
Besides, you also don't want to go through life being sensitive like that.
Like, where everyone's walking on eggshells around you, like, that's fucking stupid.
Or you're walking on eggshells just all the time, basically.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
That's what I think of it as, especially when I think of, that's basically the only way that I process social interactions anymore is, like, just completely take myself and my own personal things out of the equation. What would this have looked like if I was someone standing right over there, just watching that shit go down?
Yeah.
And thinking of it from a third-person perspective, some people think it's unhealthy to view yourself as the main character for a second, or they think of it as like an out-of-body experience to take yourself out. But if you... in some ways, I guess it's not about caring, quote unquote, like what other people think of you, but understanding how other people see you can allow you to understand a little bit more about yourself. Right. Like what you look like. Don't you want to know what you look like?
Yeah, it's like looking at a mirror.
Yeah, how could, some people, they function better not knowing what they look like. I don't. If I didn't know where my arms were on my body or what I looked like, I would behave completely differently. And it would freak people out. Like, it wouldn't be... and not the freak people out as in, like, I'm doing things that they dislike or are controversial or I would have different friends. No. Like, I would scare people.
Right.
Like, I don't...
I mean, there's social awareness.
Yeah.
Social awareness
social
is important.
Courtesy. Like, actually not even courtesy. What am I talking about? Like... mannerisms. Like there's just some shit you don't do in public. Actually, another case in point, if that blanket fucking falls,
it looks like it's
I was about to start talking shit, and I was
shit
distracted.
And see what happens.
And now I'm gonna talk shit about a different person for the record.
Do it for the chaos.
Okay.
Talk shit. Do it.
What was I just gonna talk shit about?
I am the devil on your shoulder.
Oh, so people, so there are things like I was trying to give someone advice, which you should never do, and I realized that was my error because I
literally
barely
my
understood.
job. Like all I do is give people advice.
You can, but I could not, because even if I know a little bit more about a situation than someone else does at the time, certainly I did not have the self-awareness to know what I was doing. That in addition to what I was saying, everything that people take away from what you say is a combination of what you said, what they already know, and how they are perceiving you in that moment. They're not actually literally going to take your advice. They're going to take it into consideration among other factors that they observe from you.
Yes.
So walking the walk, talking the talk, being consistent.
Like,
and
what
I
do
was
you
not
get
doing
out
that.
of the advice?
And I was not doing that while giving people advice about things that I could have used advice about. And that's okay to have that back and forth and, like, learn from each other and stuff. But this guy was not very convincing. He did not make me feel any better. I was trying to tell him about, like, streetwise safety. If you're going to go out in public and talk to random people on the street, there are a couple things that you probably shouldn't do. One is running up to people when they have their back turned and shouting in their face.
Jesus.
The number of times someone has done that to me, and I'm like, you are so lucky that not.
Oh my god!
This is why I don't.
Did that to me, I would punch them in the face.
Yes, that's what I tried
as a visceral reaction.
That's what I tried to tell him. This guy was so fucking sweet, dude. Like, he's not scary. He's just. I just gotta say. I guess my formal apology and acceptance that do not give advice when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But when you're like interacting with other people who are doing a different thing than you, like you don't have to know what the other one is doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't have to know the context.
Yeah.
Let's normalize not having to know the context.
Yeah, let's normalize just being chill about it.
Yeah.
Like, there was part of me that felt really bad whenever, because I've had a lot of, like, really nice conversations with people just out and about. Like, I just liked talking to people, or they were already talking to me, and I was like, I'll take the opportunity to pick your brain a little bit, since you already feel like talking about this, obviously.
Yeah.
And, I never, like, got there. I never thought at the time to, like, ask them where they got this information or how they grew up or the contact information to, like, ask more questions or anything. And I guess the lesson is that actually you don't think of, like, how that would, I thought of it as how I would take that if someone did that to me, right? Where it's like, you know, this is really cool, but it's mostly just really cool because I don't know you that well. Yeah. And we're all just kind of vaguely interpreting what the others are doing, and it's all a fun thing, and we can make our own interpretations, and it adds to the lore and whatnot, but you don't have to be right. I feel less and less bad all the time when I told someone the wrong thing, because if they cared about it, they probably will figure out the truth at some point.
And you also should keep in mind that if you gave somebody the wrong advice, you did not give them the wrong advice. You gave them the advice that they needed to hear in order to figure out the answer for themselves.
Yeah, no, that's what it's the combination of what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's why, like, I have such an issue with, like, spiritual gurus and stuff like that, because it's so, like, it's like people, like, they're like, it's about validation and confirmation. You can only get the answers from me, and in order to get the answers from me, you have to pay me money. And, like, oh my God, I see people talking
when you don't
about,
even
like,
need an interpreter
I'm building a
at
coven. Oh, I bought a plot of land and I'm trying to get people to live here with me, and you know, and it's just like, you know, like, I can see, like, the intention is good, because, like, I can see, like,
when you already feel like you're on the fringe of society and you want to build a physical community where you guys can just live like this without getting bullied, that's really wholesome.
Right. The idea is great. But, like, in practice, that is a cult, because all those people, you're trying to get all these people to idolize you and think that you have all the answers. And I can see how, like, someone would use that to be like, well, I'm trying to do it for a good reason.
Well,
it's
even
just like,
if you don't want to, you're in a position where you have to, every single one of these communities needs a manager of some kind. They need someone to keep people together, keep them from fighting, get everyone on the same page as much as possible. Yeah. And idealistically, that would just happen if you all have enough of these beliefs and practices in common, but that's really not how that works.
No.
We should know from the popularization of all of the different Abrahamic religions that there are multiple of them, and each of them have many different, like, subsects of, think of how many different types of, like, Christians and Muslims there are in particular.
Melting, just how many different, like,
and they're very culturally unique. Yeah. Like, they have their own communities and cultures.
Just in
and
Christianity alone.
That one's huge.
It's, like,
outrageous.
It's crazy to me, like, you know, like, we were raised Lutheran, but you tell people that, and, like, you know, you can talk to other Christians, but, like, depending on, like, what sect that they were, like, raised in, like, it's, like, a completely different religion, and it's mind-blowing, like, how, like, that, like, the further you go into it, like, whether you go more strict or less strict, you know, like, how different your beliefs are, even though, like, technically the core you believe in the same thing.
And it's all the same books and stuff, but they still interpret them wildly differently. And then people get upset when, like, they find out after reading the Bible for themselves, they have their own interpretation, and they say, oh, this person was a false prophet, everything they do is wrong. But it's like, you could probably, if you feel that strongly about it, you could probably just find a different version of Christianity that has the exact same interpretation as you, because they've been around for thousands of years, coming up with as many different types of interpretations as are possible. There's probably a group for all of them.
Well, you know, like, my issue with that is, like, the whole personal power thing, and this is the issue I have. Like, I have it in every single religious community. I have an issue with it in the spiritual community, in the like witchy community, like whatever it is, whatever community. If it's a belief system, it's the personal power problem. And that is like, everybody has the power within themselves to do anything that they want, and that is the message that is trying to be given. But the problem is that people hear the person saying that and they're like, they have all the answers, and then all of a sudden they're giving all of their personal power to one specific entity. Like, you know, like they're giving it to God, they're giving it to Jesus, they're giving it to fucking Satan. I don't know. I don't care. Like, whatever God or deity you believe in, I don't give a single shit. You should be believing in yourself, which I think that is actually the basis behind Satanism, but like, I digress on that one because I really don't know that much about it to say for sure.
We don't have to go into it right now, but yes, the one of those like rules with Satanism is that you are your god, and that Satan is just the literal devil on your shoulder telling you that it's okay.
Yeah.
So,
which, I mean, like, you know, you do
that's
you
not,
if that's your thing.
Yeah.
I don't believe in worshiping anything. I don't even believe in really worshiping myself. I'm just, like, existing just like everything else is just existing.
I think
and
worship
I'm just trying
is
to do
one
my
of
own
those
thing.
things. Do you know worship is one of those things that's like such an ancient practice that it predates literally everything? Like there's something, there are a couple of different like countries where they incorporated it into their day-to-day lives as almost like a form of exercise. Like it get to physically do the kneeling, the standing, the gathering of certain things, ingesting certain things, spending a certain amount of time meditating with different mindsets according to the person that you follow or that leads your life inspirationally. That these things are physically good for you.
Oh yeah,
like it's
and
good to be
like
thinking.
Archaeologists. Like that's how they figure out like when a civilization actually like became a civilization. Like is through, do people have burial rites? Like if people were burying their dead or
you
doing like some
when
sort of ritual with it or putting like items in with the body, like however the person is buried, that's how they can tell that, oh, this civilization actually gained structure.
Yes, like there's a consistency between them that tells you these things that, especially like nowadays, people are a little more corrective about it, where they're realizing, oh yeah, most of the people whose stuff that was left behind in a burial ground of some kind probably only still exists now because those are examples of people who were very well off back then. Like, not everyone had clothing of this quality. Not everyone had certain items buried with them or whatever.
Right, but you can tell.
Yes, like it still gives you an idea, but it is sort of people like historical enthusiasts such as myself would make fun of like certain movies and shows because, you know, they're trying to portray, say, like in the medieval era. That's actually a really popular one. Between like medieval and Victorian are so many different aesthetics that people like because it's old-fashioned-y. It's very retro. Those of us who are living right now.
I'm sorry. I'm just like picturing like Victorian era style, like the early like 1900s, and just thinking retro. Oh my god, like I think retro and I think of like Marty McFly's shoes.
Yeah.
Vest. No, that's what I think of when I think of retro.
Nah, it's all hipster shit, frankly.
Jesus Christ.
No, but
Marty McFly in his fucking shoes in the Victorian era. We've just come up with this new invention called the washing machine that washes your laundry for you.
Yes.
And you can use it to wash your puffy red zip-up vest from the future. Your retro vest.
Yes. It's very retro. Very 90s chic.
I'm sorry. Why are you saying 90s? That was like 80s, wasn't it?
No, I'm saying now because it's about who appreciates these things.
Oh, yeah.
So for 90s babies, 80s was retro, and 60s was vintage. Or is that how that works?
I think I think 70s probably would have been retro.
No, you're right.
Kids.
I think it's a 20-year difference.
Yeah,
so 2000s.
Because the 80s was too close.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like
10 years ago is like you probably still own clothes from that era.
Yeah. Like, you still relate to the previous
after
decade.
20 years, that's the point where you start to miss it a little because you've gotten rid of all that stuff. It's not around anymore.
That barrier, that time barrier is a little bit too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, here's something that, like, so I did want to talk about, like, the cults and stuff, but one part of that is, like, the weird toxic femininity and
Should I put the blanket back up so you get a warning whenever
No,
we're talking about cults now?
So, the one thing is, like, the issue with toxic femininity in the witchy community, the hereditary shit. I've seen people who, like, assume that the witch talk community, like, you can't be in the witch talk community unless you are a woman, that if you're in a coven or, like, a group, I guess, that it would be women only. I've seen that. I have seen people who, like, they're trying to lead others, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the problem is that their reasoning for why people should listen to them is because they're like, oh, well, I went on Ancestry.com and I went back and I found out I had family living in Salem. I don't even have jokes
for that. That's just exhausting.
I had family living in Salem, and so they were probably tried as witches, and and witchcraft runs in my family.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, like, you have to listen to me because I'm a hereditary witch. And I'm just like, or you could just shut the fuck up and let people do whatever they want. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I just think it's like the reasoning, like, it's all about the intention of it. Like, if you say, like, hey, I've put a lot of work into this and I've learned a lot and I want to share what I know just because I want to share what I know, that's all you have to say. You don't have to be like, oh, I got a past life reading done and I had past lives that were burned at the stake for witchcraft, so I'm actually more, like, credible.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, like, your past lives don't actually matter. That's not you.
Mm-hmm.
Just
you
because
are
they're
taking
a facet
credit for
of your soul
what
does
your
not
ancestors did in any capacity, especially because at some point you are going to be faced with some problematic shit that they have done.
Yep.
Because everyone has. Not a single group is exempt. Everyone has, like, a checkered history of doing shit because they had to. For their own people, it seemed like the right thing to do at the time to maintain their territory or whatever it was, expand. It wasn't always cute. It was not aesthetic and pretty.
Humans are fucking brutal.
No, okay?
Yeah.
And talking about even in terms of, like, the aesthetic of wanting to live a certain way, okay? Living in a log cabin, you're probably going to get mold poisoning or something. People were dying of dysentery because they didn't know how to wash their ass. Like, you don't want to use these people as, like, your moral excuse as, like, oh, you're blood related to these people and that's why you're the moral authority.
Matter.
But then what we were talking about before, which is in particular the vulva argument.
Oh yeah.
Where when someone has actually been raised in a traditionally, I'm going to name something here to use in particular as an example, where there are people who take that shit seriously, where they actually learn their ancestors' history and, know enough to teach, but they still would not.
Yeah. Because
they're like, well, I'm very, like, privileged, for lack of a better word. I've had the luxury of being surrounded by people who are interested in this in an era where we can appreciate all of history. So much of it is at our fingertips. We can learn from those people in, by the time you're 30 years old, you might be as, like, knowledgeable, like, book smarts as someone who qualifies for a leadership role in their community or family or whatever.
Live it.
But you did not live any of this stuff. Being an expert does not make you qualified to teach other people what to do in that case. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to take on a title as something that you would normally only picture like a 60-plus-year-old person calling themselves, because that's how much real life experience that you need.
Taco Bell!
Food.
But we should probably close this out then, huh?
Yeah.